Let's party.
Hello everybody, welcome to Party Loaded. It is episode, what are we up to, 208. We are going to be discussing everything tonight, just like we do every week, that's great in the world of video games. My name's Luke Retallick. Joining me, we have, all around the circle, we have Christian Paulson Brown, we have Adrian Chia, and we have Matt, Legame Dad Diet. Welcome, everybody.
Legume Dad?
Legume Dad.
Green Bean Dad.
This works fine. Yeah. So I want to point out before we go any further that we're nearly at the end of January, and that means that it is almost the time where I can say that Doom Eternal is out next month. Can you feel the excitement? Can you feel it?
I can feel the hype.
Yes, you can. The hype is real. I'm super excited. Well, it feels like the year's going to start proper when I get to play the first new, much anticipated game of the year. But I don't know. For now, it seems to be a lot of catching up on 2019 stuff for me. Yeah, which is totally fun. Yeah. But school holidays are ending shortly, and maybe there'll be some semblance of normality in my household. I don't know. What have you guys been playing? What's your week's been like? Matt, I want to throw to you this week because you're talking about something that is super cool and it's kind of like a continuation from last week. So yeah.
I finished Pillars of Eternity properly this time. I went through and actually did the DLC. Then went and did the actual final fight and everything. Since the game, if you do the final fight, it actually ends the game. You can't actually go back and do this other stuff. So I had to go back, do the DLC and everything. Which put like another 15 or 16 hours total on my gameplay.
Is this what Adrian was mentioning during the week when you said it was like Horizon Zero Dawn, where it was like the DLCs embedded in the game? Yeah.
So got done with that and had a really good time with it. And then I started the sequel. So I started playing Deadfire, which is the Pillars of Eternity 2 sequel. No, Pillars of Eternity sequel, Pillars of Eternity 2. And holy crap, it is so much better. Like, it's actually leaps and bounds like incredibly good. Have any of you played Sid Meier's Pirates?
Oh
no.
I've seen it, but I don't think I've actually had hands on. Yeah.
So Pillars of Eternity Deadfire is the Sid Meier's sequel that I didn't know I wanted.
Okay.
Like, because it is so much like Pirates. It is amazing, but it's got like RPG mechanics.
So to be clear, Deadfire is the name of the game. It's not like Deadfire is the expansion. Okay, cool.
No, Deadfire. I thought it was an expansion as well, but because the name is Pillars of Eternity Deadfire.
All right.
Thanks, Adrian.
So it's not Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire?
It is Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, but you hear people calling it multiple things. It's like Pillars of Eternity 2, Pillars of Eternity Deadfire, Deadfire, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. Like, it is just a variety of different names.
I love how you start talking about pirates and immediately Adrian sources the nearest catamaran.
That was terrible. That was really bad.
But speaking of bad puns, that's probably my favorite thing about it, is the fact that my character can now make puns.
You're selling me on this game. Tell me more.
It is great. It is amazing. I actually posted a screenshot during the week. I'm going to have to find it now while I'm talking about it. But like the whole way the original game kind of plays out, the character's very stoic, and you don't really have a lot of emotion. You don't really show a lot of emotion. Whereas the sequel, there's so much more personality to inject into the character. And so here's the thing, to quote it. One of the characters is like, that you've just saved him in this tomb. He says, "I'm sure it would be astounded to learn that the powers that be in Adia didn't much like that. The Steel Garrote's been after me for my grave transgression ever since." And one of the characters replies, which I immediately zipped to, was you wink at the character, you wink at him and say, "You might say you've dug yourself a little tomb deep."
So it actually has a wink. It has wink in the dialogue choice.
It has wink in the dialogue choice.
Amazing. Love it.
Ban this game.
The moment I chose that, it was so good because your party members will react. Finally, I killed Adrian. Great.
Sweet. It was a little too much for him.
Too much.
But yeah, like the way the game's structured, there's a lot more personality that you can project to the character, and it is so much better. Narratively, it is just it's a much stronger start. The original game, the first half of it's like it is just info dumping. Like it is just telling you all this stuff, and it is genuinely a matter of like, why should I fucking care?
Super grim info dumping, if I recall what you were saying.
It is super grim info dumping, yeah. And then when you hit that halfway point, it's like, and here's why you should care. And it's like, oh shit, suddenly I care. Whereas the second game basically starts off and it's like, so yeah, you're dead. And now half of your soul is currently walking across the ocean and you need to go get it back. And you set off on a quest to do that, but along the way you go do piratey stuff, and it's a great time.
So that's your whole motivation, like, because half of your soul is walking across the ocean. Yep, that is a half of your soul. Fucking cool plot for a story. I like that a lot.
So
cool
it ties in. It ties in really well with the first one. So the first game, this isn't spoilers because it literally is how the game opens. In the first game, you take over this gigantic fortress called Cave Nua. And underneath that gigantic fortress, you can actually see the fingers of something poking out the ground. You don't realize the fingers until you start traveling down and realize there's a gigantic statue underneath your tower that you take over. In the sequel, that statue comes to life, kills you, and then walks off with your soul in it. And so you are sent to chase it down. It's gigantic. It's absolutely massive.
What did we learn, kids?
Don't steal.
But yeah, no, the game has a sense of humor. If you're a fan of Critical Role, it's got all the Critical Role voice actors in it.
Yeah, I remember that being a big thing.
Yeah, there's actually a free voice pack that gives you Critical Role voice actors as actors for your character, which is pretty neat. And yeah, like there's a whole lot more customization to it, a whole lot more roleplay potential. Unlike the first one, you can actually have romances with your companion characters, which is not a thing. Now, of course, like you find this fish godlike dude who basically has all these fishy features. He has scales and everything. And of course, one of the first things you can do is hold his hand. So hold his hand. Hand, like
hand. I thought you said hair for a second.
No, he hasn't got hair. He's got like tentacle things.
Yeah.
You bone him?
He's like, his name's like Temehu or something. I forget. But
yeah,
no, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. It's very hard to put down. I'll say that much.
What's the movie again? Sound of Water? Sound of Water?
Shape of Water?
Shape of Water.
Is that the one that's linked to the Hellboy movies?
No.
It's the same director, but...
well,
okay. Yeah.
It's linked because the director's the same.
Oh, I legitimately thought that one of the characters had some sort of...
He looks very similar to Ape Sapien, but he's not.
Right, okay, yeah.
Different character, but very similar design.
Yeah. Fishman.
Yeah.
But she bones the fishman. She bones him.
Yeah.
She gives him a fish bone.
Fish sticks.
Yeah.
Fish sticks.
Better for a fish to get boned than deboned, I guess. Probably better for them.
Yeah, well.
I have a question, Matt. I want to know.
Would it be better for it than being deboned?
No, it's good.
Let's go there.
Anywho, I'll pay that, Christian. That was subtle. That was good.
Thank you.
So I want to know if you think it's necessary to pay Pillars of Eternity 1 before 2. Is there going to be a big problem if you sort of pick up 2 first?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. That's the short answer.
What's the time difference between them as far as releases go? Because it feels like Pillars didn't come out that long ago.
Pillars of Eternity 2 came out 2018. I don't know when Pillars of Eternity 1 came out. It was kickstarted.
2014.
Yeah, but it's a fairly modern game still. It's not like going from Witcher 1 to Witcher 3.
No, it's nothing like that. The biggest problem the game has is combat's not that hard to get into. It's not as intuitive in Pillars of Eternity 1 as say Divinity Original Sin 2, right? Like combat there is super intuitive. Pillars of Eternity 2, I would say, is arguably up there with Divinity Original Sin 2.
This is the thing that I remember, actually, because I remember when Deadfire came out, it was largely overlooked because it was in the same year that Divinity 2 came out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
It very much reminds me of when Breath of the Wild came out, and we got the Sony exclusive, I can't remember the name of it. Horizon, thank you. Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah, when Horizon came out, like, Horizon's an amazing game, but Breath of the Wild is like half a point better. And that's very much kind of the vibes I get here. You might argue that, but that was what the review scores basically said, was that like Breath of the Wild was half a point better. It was the game that got the most attention. And I think Pillars is very similar in that respect. It's that it's so good a game, but it came out at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
but it has a lot more DLC. So
I think the bigger concern with games like that is because they're like really heavy RPGs with a lot of story. Like the time sink on those games is so extreme that people tend to not play multiples in a year unless they have a lot of free time. So
I probably, I'm looking at my stats now. So Pillars of Eternity 1, I have 102 hours played in.
That's respectable.
20 hours of that would have been me trying to play it originally, because I kept on bouncing off of it really hard. Pillars of Eternity 2, I have 30 hours in it, and I've barely started. It feels like a way larger game. There's a lot more exploration to do, a lot more locations to visit.
It looks a lot better, sort of graphically as well. Like,
it's a gorgeous game. It's a gorgeous game. It is so well written in comparison to the first one. The first one felt very heavy-handed. It felt the first game felt a lot like, somebody on the narrative team was very much flexing, like, look at all this really deep and meaningful writing I'm going to do. Whereas 2 felt a lot more, it feels so far a lot more like a fun swashbuckling adventure with some really deep narrative. Like, they've gotten all of the narrative dumping out in the first one, and now they can just kind of let you enjoy the universe, which is why I say you can pick up 2 and probably have fun with it, but you're going to have no fucking clue what the hell's going on. They're going to be referring to you as Watcher, and you're going to be like, why am I a Watcher? They will probably do like an info dump at the start that will explain stuff to you, like who you've been, what you've done, who these people are you're talking to, why you're dealing with gods, why you're so important. But all of that has a lot more impact, I think, having finished the first game. And your choices carry over. It does the whole Mass Effect thing where you make a whole bunch of decisions in that game. You choose to befriend or ally with certain characters, and those characters return. And it's really cool when they do, because they'll comment on very, very specific stuff. It does some really neat stuff that even Mass Effect didn't actually do in terms of remembering the decisions you made.
So it does import your stuff. Yeah, cool. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just watching that footage, and I didn't see many anime titties, so I'm going to say pass. Hard pass.
Okay, so Christian, hold on. Hear me out.
Okay.
It has Steam Workshop.
Oh, right. That's a whole thing. Okay.
Yep. Nice. Yep, that opens the door to whatever the hell your diseased mind wants, really, doesn't it?
You can have so many anime titties. Everybody can have anime titties. Your gigantic statue that has your soul can have gigantic anime titties.
That's disgusting, Matt. You perv.
So just want to mention that Dinny in the chat recommended, if we want that kind of content, we want to check out Barbie Horse Adventures. That's got all the anime titties that you possibly want. Yeah,
sounds
zero anime titties is literally unplayable.
Yeah,
I'm just reading what the chat says.
Yeah,
I mean, you would think Barbie and horse. There's potential there.
Jeez, yeah. Nice.
No.
Yep.
Moving on.
I want to talk about what I've been playing. I've been playing something fun. So, who here is a Pokemon fan?
Me.
Yeah, I think all of us, to a certain extent, will be keen. So,
I don't feel like I can call myself one. I haven't played Sword and Shield yet.
Well,
whatever.
You've finished a Pokemon game, haven't you?
I've played plenty of Pokemon games.
Yeah.
I enjoy Pokemon. There is
I'm not so much a fan as in an abusive relationship with Pokemon.
Well, Adrian, let me sell you on a whole new abusive relationship that you can foster.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a game that's been doing the rounds the last week or so that's just gone into early access.
I know what this is.
Yeah, you probably do. Which is basically a Pokemon clone in almost every respect, but improves upon some aspects. It's called Temtem. So I've been playing this game, Temtem. Now, Temtem is basically a Pokemon MMO. So it's taking like the new sort of style 3D graphics of, I guess, Pokemon Sword and Shield, that kind of sort of style.
And a bit better than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it looks a lot nicer, actually. And it's launched on PC to begin with. So that's a big plus for me because, you know, getting a Pokemon game on PC is a bit of a different selling proposition to start with as well. But this game, basically, you can tell it's been made by someone who loves Pokemon and has a few issues with different aspects of the games not having really iterated on themselves over past years and has tried to address those things. So I've been sinking a bit of time into exploring it and sort of checking it out. Now, the things that are pretty much exactly the same, like you literally start off in the game, you know, encountering a professor and getting a choice of 3 starters and all that sort of shit's pretty much the same. You have Pokemon, they battle, you have Temtems. Now, you don't throw them out of a ball, you actually they're in cards, so you basically flip the card out and they come out of the cards, and they battle like that. But all the other stuff is pretty much consistent. Like you have evolutions, you have trading, you have battling with NPCs that are floating around. You've got long grass, which you sort of explore to find different Temtem and that kind of stuff. You can catch them, you can breed them, all that sort of stuff. The stuff that is better that I really like. Number one is that the system for battling, I think, has actually got a bit more meat to it because of the way that they've designed their abilities to kind of play off each other. Battling by default in Temtem is actually 2v2, so you pretty much don't do like 1v1 battles, which I actually prefer 2v2 battles in the Pokemon games because it gives you a bit more variety in terms of the abilities you can use and how you can kind of support your monsters and sort of do combo moves and that sort of thing. And, you know, when you have attacks that do, you know, damage versus one target versus like everything on the field, you know, there's a bit more to think about there. But the cool thing in this game is that they've actually got synergies between some of the attacks in terms of how they work. So you might have like a water type that has like a water gun type attack, which will have a different name in Temtem, which I can't remember at the moment. But if you've got like a toxic type with it as well, which is, you know, your poison type equivalent, then basically that water attack will turn into like toxic water. It'll be like poison water by the sheer nature of the fact that you've got those two teamed up. You could also have the same sort of situation with like a fire type Temtem next to it, and it'd get like a scalding property and turn it into like a hot water jet as well, just by the fact that you've got them teamed up and battling. And those sorts of things are very common. It's really, really cool. You've also got what's called hold moves, which are kind of like attacks that you have to wait to power up. And so there's actually a good reason where you would want to have a good variety of the 4 different sort of abilities in your Temtem's kind of repertoire, as opposed to just like, what happens in Pokemon a lot of the time. You sort of get into a fight and you pretty much just spam your toughest attack. Like it's what you do. So you find one attack that works against the thing that you're fighting against, and you just spam the crap out of it until you run out of points for it. Yep. But in Temtem, you've actually got like a stamina bar, and certain attacks take up a lot more stamina than others. So there's actually some strategy around like whether you want to go in hard and deplete your strongest attacks, and then sort of you got nothing left, or whether you want to sort of balance it out a little bit and pace yourself and do that kind of thing. And the support moves actually play a much larger role in that respect too. So you've got a chance to actually sort of bolster and beef your dudes up instead of just going hard with attacks the whole time, which I think for the battling, it adds a lot more variety that you don't see in the standard Pokemon games. It's one of the ways in which I think Pokemon has actually aged really poorly. They've got like a really cool, huge range of different sort of move types, but a lot of them just don't see play because unless you're playing uber competitive and there's, you know, these real nuances in the way that certain things interact, which as a casual player you tend to never experience. So, but that's really cool. Adrian, you'll be pleased to know there is a equivalent of shinies in the game. So basically what you call luminous Temtems. They're the same sort of thing, essentially, super rare, like color palette swapped sort of things. So, yeah.
I think Adrian would also like to know, is there an ice type? Or equivalent?
I've looked into Temtem.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So
The problem, Luke, is that it's trash. They should call it trash is what they should call it.
There's zero anime titty. So
zero. Oh, I wouldn't say zero. Like the character models are very similar, so I will say that the game overall is harder than Pokemon, and it is harder out of the gate as well. So if you want something that's a bit more challenging, I think it's really good. And I think that there's a load of potential with this thing when it actually comes to consoles, which is going to be happening a little bit later down the track, because they've said that they're going to be supporting cross-save and cross-play. So like an actual sort of living world of these things where you can battle other people and trade and that sort of stuff as like a cross-play thing, I think sounds really friggin' cool. But yeah, it's early access. They've done like 3 islands at the moment in terms of the main sort of playable story areas. And there's a fair bit more coming. But there's quite a bit of game there at the moment. Like there's a decent amount of story campaign. I haven't gotten anywhere near finishing it. So yeah, but I have been really enjoying it. I think it's cool. I think, you know, the Pokemon diehards like Adrian are probably going to just, you know, stick their nose up at it because it's something new, trying to copy it, you know, to a certain extent. And that's true. But there's a lot of good there as well, I think. So
to be fair, I do think it's cool. Like I think it's a good idea, and I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with variety. There's just something about the actual Temtem designs that doesn't grab me. Like something about them, they seem like over designed, or I don't know. It might be bias. It might just be me being used to like a Pokemon style aesthetic, because there is a certain art style to Pokemon that I'm used to, and the Temtem art style of the Temtem themselves. You can, like, if you mixed Pokemon and Temtem together, I have a feeling you would be able to pick the Temtem out of the lineup.
Oh, totally.
They look like before a Pokemon game comes out, and there's like fake leaks.
Yes.
And you always go. You can tell by the art design that's not a real Pokemon, because you can just.
That's a good point. They all look like a fake Pokemon. They don't like, but that's part of the issue with what I don't like about them is they look like fake Pokemon. Therefore, they don't look like their own thing. I feel like it could lean harder into a bit of a better of an identity with the art style. Then again, I'm not an artist, and I don't have any right to criticize, you know, an entire studio's worth of collective, like, creative input. So it's still good.
I think there's a lot of Pokemon that are quite forgettable in terms of like some of the later generations and some of the non sort of core ones that they use in their marketing. There's a lot that you sort of just don't remember, which kind of fall into the same sort of bucket in a way. But I think that there are certain Pokemon that are just super iconic, and Temtem lacks a bit of that at the moment. Like I think during the development, they might actually land on some that I think become like the poster child sort of ones for the game. I haven't seen anything yet that would really fit that mold specifically. But like, I kind of get what you're saying, Adrian, and in a way, I really wish they had have just gone hard in a more alternate direction to sort of make it their own thing instead of taking so much inspiration from Pokemon.
And people probably wouldn't be talking about it, because it wouldn't have got as much attention.
Yes and no.
The Pokemon MMO is why it spread so far. Yeah.
I think they could probably get that headline even if it wasn't as similar as it is. But who knows?
Yeah, I just have the unshakable feeling when I look at it that it's just too close to a knockoff. Like I really admire all the advancements that they've done in like taking the concept of a Pokemon game to new places. But I just look at that and think, I wish that was in a Pokemon game, and then I'd play it. I just can't bring myself to get into Temtem.
I will say that for an early access game, it is super good quality. So like way better quality than I would expect.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Luke, what would you rate it on a scale of 1 to Temtem?
I'd rate it a fuck you.
I see. So Luke's allowed to make fun, but no one else is.
No. I'll pay that. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. All right. From 10s to 5s, let's talk some Street Fighter. Boys, what have you been doing?
Playing Street Fighter, you know, punching and kicking and throwing.
Yep.
Yeah, bodying noobs. It's been great.
Are you actually playing?
I haven't been bodying noobs.
Have you attended any more local events, or is this all online shenanigans?
No,
not in a while. No. So it's all on.
Yeah. We might meld the Street Fighter talk into our topic as well, because there's a bit of crossover there. So my Street Fighter journey has been the same as it's going on. I did make a new rank, which has been exciting. So I made it to
Super Silver.
I made it to Super Silver, which was a fluke, and I won like 13 games in a row.
Wow!
And I spent the next couple of hours terrified that I'd set the cosmic balance out of whack. And surely enough, I was reminded of my place and took a 14-game losing streak all the way, back down to Super Bronze.
Wow.
Holy shit.
That is quite the tumble.
Yeah. So in a way, I felt right. Like it felt like I deserved that for believing that I could have, flown so high. Like it was my own fault, really.
You tried to steal fire from the gods.
Exactly.
You got Icarus to fuck. Yeah.
What I've instead been playing is I mentioned last week that I was playing Dishonored 2, and I mentioned that I was going initially for a non-lethal game run.
Oh, yeah.
Where you play through the entire game with only knocking people out and not killing them, which is harder. And secondly, trying to do a ghostly run, which is where you never get spotted, which in that game, if you've played any kind of game like that, is crazy. So I mentioned that last time I played it, I got through the first mission with non-lethal and not being spotted. Then in the second mission, I got spotted, and I thought, well, fuck it. I'll just make it a non-lethal run. What happened late after that is I spent 6 hours playing the third mission, finished the entire mission, and was like, yes, I did it. And someone had died at some point along the way. One of the people I'd knocked out had died somewhere, and I had no way of knowing when it was. So instead, I started all over again from the beginning of the game. I'm now up to the last mission of the game, and I have a complete non-lethal and ghostly run.
Nice.
So I haven't killed a single person, and I've never been spotted all the way through the game. So it's meant that... Oh, and I bumped up the difficulty to the hardest difficulty. So instead of... I was doing it on hard before, now it's on very hard, which means every single enemy is like super like aware of their surroundings, and they can spot you from the other side of the room, of the garden, basically. So
yeah, it's
been actually really enjoyable in sort of a masochistic roguelite way, where of course the only way to do this is by save scumming. There's no other way to do it. You cannot not get spotted in the game with that.
It'd be like trying to do a flawless XCOM run. That sort of stuff just
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's been really enjoyable, and in a strange way, it's actually made it a bit stress free, because half of to 3/4 of the abilities that you spend your resources on upgrading are completely null and void. We talked a little bit about it last week, but now being like 8 missions into the game right near the end, there's some skills that I've never used and there's no point in using. Like there's one skill that makes you more stealthy, but when you're doing a ghost run, it doesn't help because you're already being as stealthy as possible. It's hard to explain, but it doesn't help that much. Anyway, that's what I've been playing, and that's been really good. And I have bought and downloaded the third Dishonored game that was made, Death of the Outsider is what it was called.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out the name last week. So I've got that ready to go, so I'm keen to give that a go as well.
That's the 2.5 kind of game.
Yeah, basically. It's about half the length of 2, so we'll see how that goes. But it's been really fun, actually, and sort of... one thing I want to mention, it's not a story spoiler, but it's a bit of a mechanic spoiler. I don't know if you guys want me to say it or not, if you're planning on playing through the game and you really care about that.
I'm fine with it.
I think it's long enough.
I'm old. I'll forget.
You will. So one thing I want to mention is in mission number 6, which is about 30 hours into the game, you play a mission where you have to infiltrate a mansion and dispatch the guy who owns the mansion. When you first arrive at the mansion, it's abandoned and derelict, and it's like overrun with vermin. There's no guards except for a couple of like infested, like zombie-like dudes. And then the owner of the mansion is like gone crazy in his like piano room, and he's sitting at the piano like talking to himself. And then for some reason, this area of the game, for a plot reason, you lose all your powers. So you have no access to your powers. What the game gives you instead is a stopwatch style item. And what the stopwatch does is it flips you back and forth between the past and the present. And so the whole level is instead you flipping back and forth in time. And in the past, the mansion is full of servants and guards. And in the future, it's empty. And in the future, parts of the mansion are like run down and destroyed, and in the past they're pristine. And by affecting things in the past, it changes the outline of like the mansion in the future. But what makes it really interesting is that when you have the stopwatch, you press a button and it fans out these crystals. If you're in the future and you fan out the crystals, wherever you move the stopwatch and look through the crystals, it shows the past. and it actually will like show what's currently happening in the other timeline with those crystals unfolded. It's hard to describe, but I suggest sort of Googling it and looking up a little bit of video of it. But you can like walk down a hallway, kind of like looking through a lens and seeing the past while moving through the future. Then you can hit the button and swap it, so you're now in the past looking into the future. And instead of being stealthy by teleporting around, you're instead stealthy by zipping back and forth in between the past and the present. So if someone spots you, you can zip into the future, run behind them by seeing where they are with the spyglass, and then zipping back into the past and assassinating them or knocking them out. It's just really cool and really odd that it happens so late in the game when it's like a really interesting mechanic. I just thought I wanted to talk about it. So I found it really interesting.
That sounds exactly like Titanfall 2. There's the effect and cause level. Where, same thing. You're flipping back and forth between the future, the past, and the present, and the building is like on fire and destroyed in one thing, and then like it's like an advanced facility in the other timeline, and it's similar except there's no like looking into the other one in Titanfall 2.
I was going to say that mechanic actually reminds me a lot of something they just did recently in the TV series The Magicians as well. Similar kind of thing, but it also reminded me. And Matt, I might be wrong about this, but is that a mechanic in Return of the Obra Dinn, or am I thinking of something different?
No. So the mechanic in Return of the Obra Dinn is that you aren't traveling back in time. You're traveling back to a fixed point, like a frozen point in time where you see events as they had ended, essentially.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you don't manipulate events in that respect.
It's a bit more Arkham crime scene procedural kind of. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. The only thing visualizing the event.
The only thing I want to mention that makes this really interesting is that as you work your way through the mansion, flipping back and forth between the past and the present, you eventually come across your target, your assassination target. Now, depending on whether you spare him and knock him out or actually kill him, it changes the present. So because he's the owner of the mansion, if you kill him and then go back into the present, it's not derelict. If you knock him out, it's also not derelict, but also not lived in because he's moved out. So it actually creates 4 different sort of timelines that you're then swapping between.
That's cool.
It's really complicated, but what it means is halfway through the mission, after you knock him out, you've just spent, in my case, a couple of hours swapping between the present and the future. You knock out this target. Now the present and the future are different heading back through the mansion. And depending on which choice you made, it will change depending on what happens. And so, like when you go back into the future after assassinating that guy, his servants are talking about what happened, how he was killed. But if you knock him out, those servants, are in different rooms, and they're talking about a different series of events that unfolded. So I just thought it was really cool. Yeah, really cool mechanic, visually really exciting. So I'd suggest looking it up and having a look.
That sounds awesome. Like, I can think of very few game series that have actually done time travel properly, and that sounds pretty rad. But
it is only for this one level, but it is really cool. Yeah, but I think just for the fact alone that when you're holding this timepiece and it fans out, they look like insect wings. So it's like 3 dragonfly wings. And like if you're in the present, you're looking through them into the past. If you're in the past, you're looking through them into the present. And wherever you move the insect wings in real time, it shows you what's happening in the alternate universe, which visually it just looks amazing. Yeah.
Nice. Christian, anything else you want to throw in for this week's gaming? Nope.
That's it.
Nope. All right, well, let's jump into some news. We've got a couple of things to cover tonight. It's been a reasonably quietish week. We haven't sort of ramped up the news cycle in 2020 just yet. But Adrian, you want to kick us off tonight with some Pokemans? What's going on?
Yeah, so obviously I've been invested quite heavily in Pokemans lately. And as a lot of hardcore Pokemon fans, we're all sort of chomping at the bit to find out when we could import Pokemon from our older games. So back when the Pokemon games were on the DS, there was an online subscription service called Pokemon Bank. I can't remember how much it was. It might have been $5 for the year or something like that.
I think it was cheaper it might have been cheaper than that. It was really cheap, yeah.
Either way, it was basically an online storage system where you could transfer all the Pokemon that you'd caught over the life of your DS games. You were able, usually through those Pokemon DS games, to transfer them from game to game to some degree. And then eventually they gave the option where you could transfer them into the cloud, basically, and they were kept on the cloud in what we can only assume is eternal torture because, They're digital beings living in.
Just a bigger version of the ball, man. That's all it is.
That's right.
Balls within balls.
So, balls within balls. We don't want to know about your private life, Luke. So people want to know, do we have a similar system coming for the modern games? And so it was announced that Pokemon Home was coming available for the Switch, which is basically Pokemon Bank, but the newer updated version. So some details have been released, and as per usual, it is a subscription scheme. There are a couple of different levels of subscription based on time. So you can go 1 month, 3 months, or 12 months, and they're $3, $5, or $16 respectively for that amount of time. Or there is a free service available, but the free service, let's be clear, is pathetically limited. So to give you an example, if you want to deposit Pokemon into Pokemon Home, if you have the free service, you can only deposit 30 Pokemon, which is kind of crazy because you catch more Pokemon than that just playing through the base game.
Yeah. So you have to limit it to your super rare legendaries and things like that. Yeah.
So that's weird. Maybe it's designed so that people use it and then get hooked and want to subscribe.
I was looking at that thinking, but that's okay because there's probably only 30 Pokemon that actually exist in the new games anyway that were in the old ones. So,
While on the other hand, if you pay for the service, you get 6,000 as opposed to 30. So a bit of a difference there.
That's a massive difference.
It is a massive difference. Yeah.
It's like a little bit obscene.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? That's what I mean about it being so pathetically small.
If it was like 300 versus 6,000, then it'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. But so some of the features are basically moving Pokemon back and forth from the bank to your games, the number that you can deposit. It says the number of Pokemon that can be placed in the Wonder Box at once. I can only assume that the Wonder Box is like solitary confinement for Pokemon. Number of Pokemon that you can place in the GTS, that'll be the global trading system. So we can assume that using Pokemon Home, you can send Pokemon off to be traded around the world. Turns out with the freemium, for the free service, it's 1. For the subscription service, it's 3. So maybe you can be trading 3 Pokemon at once, which is kind of cool.
GTS is handy. Yeah.
And then there's some other functions there as well. They say room trade and judge function. The judge function is probably for judging Pokemon stats.
Which IV checking.
Yeah, which will be which you can't do on the free version, but can do if you pay for the subscription. The only other real important details for this is that using the system, you can transfer Pokemon from Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu into Shield, but not back the other way. And you can do it that way, but not that way. Between Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, you can do it back and forth between those two games.
Now, this is the question I had, because I find this really interesting, and maybe those of you who've played Let's Go can answer it. In Pokemon Go, the Pokemon are missing 3 of their stats that they normally have in the regular Pokemon games out of the 6.
Adrian was talking about Pokemon Let's Go, not Pokemon Go, right?
But Pokemon Go allows you to transfer Pokemon into Let's Go, and my understanding is that...
Does it? I thought it was only the other way.
No, you can transfer Pokemon Go.
Can?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Pokemon in Go to Let's Go, my understanding is that in Let's Go they don't have like a speed stat or a special attack stat or a special defense stat. Is that correct?
I think they don't have special defense, special attack. They just have attack, HP, and stamina, or I think.
So one would assume that Pokemon that exist in a game where there's like less detail, less granular detail to their stat blocks, and then get transferred over to like one of the mainline ones, what happens to that? Like, is it just like randomly determined?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have access to that.
I would wager that the reason they removed those stats is because mathematically they'll just be using something else, which basically just means that whenever they are transferring to the next system, they'll just use that same equation to generate out like what would their special defense be based on their defense.
Yeah.
Right? Like something like that. That seems like the most reasonable way to do it.
It's just interesting because I think for collectors who sort of, go around, particularly in Pokemon Go, trying to get like the perfect Pokemon with like max stats across all blocks and then transfer it over and discover, no, it's actually not that good because you've got these 3 other stats that are actually trash. So, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a one interesting feature is that there's going to be a national Pokedex attached to Pokemon Home. So, I mean, that might be a tantalizing indication of where we're headed. Maybe we are looking at a more unified view of Pokemon where they're all available. And lastly, there's like a profile option to go with Pokemon Home as well. So there may be a social element to it where maybe let me show you my Pokemans might
Yeah.
be a thing to do with.
Question from the chat, Adrian. What is the sexiest Pokemon and why is it Cubone?
What is the sexiest Pokemon? The reason Cubone is the sexiest Pokemon is because it has its dead mother's skull on its head.
I was gonna say it's mum's
So
dead.
around it. That's why it's the sexiest. Because there's necrophilia involved.
I hate that we thought the same.
Nothing says sex like wearing your dead mother. So-
Exactly. Yeah.
This is psycho
Jesus.
shit.
But for real, the sexiest Pokemon is probably Lopunny. Because it's... Oh, no, Salazzle. Ooh.
Gudra.
Christian, we know Christian's proclivity.
We know what websites Christian and Adrian have been frequenting. So
Websites.
don't Google that.
Yeah. So the only other news to come out that's Pokemon related is they're introducing a ranked battle system to Pokemon Go, which no one it's like that meme where nobody nothing Pokemon Go ranked battles. So it's kind of like that. I'm probably wrong. People have probably been clamoring for it, and there's probably plenty of people.
I'm pretty confident they have been, actually.
Yeah. Let's be frank. Pokemon Go is a poor man's Pokemon, and it's not great for battling. So we'll wait and see how it turns out. They're starting off with a Great League, and then it goes up to an Ultra League before commencing with a Master League. So it runs in those three in that order. And then it resets. So we can assume that people will move up through those leagues as they battle. Who knows? It might create an exciting meta for Pokemon Go. Maybe it will sort of give it a shot in the arm and people will sort of get involved. But I imagine this is sort of more appealing to those people who have always stuck with it and always wanted like a battling system. So we'll see how we go.
Pokemon Go, last year was its most successful year.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Made more money last year than last.
I actually saw a ranking recently of the top 10 moneymakers in mobile gaming over the last 12 months, and Pokemon Go was in that list. So, huge amounts of cash.
Cool. All right. Well, I mean, maybe this will be good for that. So we'll see how we go. I mean, more features is always good. It'll be interesting to do with the battling system because obviously Pokemon, the mainline Pokemon games are already not very complicated. Pokemon Go is an even simpler version of that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of meta evolves when you've got such a simple system of battling. So we'll find out.
Nice.
Before we move on, I have a genuinely weird thought. In mobile gaming, you have this term of whales, right? With people that will go and just spend a ton of money to keep a game afloat. Are Pokemon Go whales extremely fucking ripped?
Yeah, they're called whale lords. Matt.
They're called whale lords. Yeah, makes sense.
The real Pokemon Go whales just GPS hack everything.
That's true.
Probably.
Yeah, I do remember reading an article about a dude in the first sort of few months of Pokemon Go launching that planned international travel to get to different countries so that he could actually collect all of the region-specific Pokemon that nobody else had access to. And I think he was the first person sort of advertised as being able to fill out his Pokedex and had about a big name for himself for about 15 minutes. So,
I have a Tauros from when I was visiting the United States. So, yeah. And that's neat.
I'm just happy I got a Heracross when I was in Orlando. I could get no other Pokemon but a Heracross. It may have ruined my honeymoon. I'm not going to lie. I'd say it was worth it.
But Prairie.
Yeah. So no,
I remember
Heracross.
I remember running across an American 4 lanes of traffic to get to where it was before it despawned. I remember exactly where I was.
So, guys, the next time Adrian's traveling internationally, nobody mentioned to him that shinies exist in this game now.
No, but the thing is, Pokemon Go shinies are crap because they're everywhere. Catching a shiny in Pokemon Go means nothing. Means nothing.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Keep telling yourself that. Anyway, moving on. So an interesting thing happened about a week ago, sort of heading into news about upcoming games and new projects and that sort of stuff. The studio that's now owned by Microsoft, Ninja Theory, that's producing developing the sequel to Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, sequel Hellblade 2, Senua's Saga, which we saw a bit of footage of at I think it was the Game Awards. We saw the first trailer, sort of Senua, decked out out and face paint and chanting in a really sort of evil way. It was like a very brooding, atmospheric sort of piece. It looked really, really cool. First Hellblade game, fucking mint. Really, really good game. Like, highly recommend. Off the back of that game, it seems that Ninja Theory have actually developed a bit of a reputation for being a game studio that takes sort of mental illness quite seriously when it comes to the design aspects of representing it in games. And even so that I think they actually picked up a bunch of awards with the way that psychosis was actually depicted in Hellblade. And there was, definitely some video pieces around how they actually approached that and the care that they took. And a lot of people sort of saying that it seemed like the most accurate representation yet of that sort of thing. And it was, quite harrowing to play. So they're doubling down on that, it seems. And they actually released a short sort of direct style presentation about a week ago, detailing some of the stuff that they've got on the boil at the moment in the studio. So development of Hellblade 2 is sort of ongoing. There's a bit of an insider's piece on that. But they also released the first footage for a new project they're working on called Project Mara, which basically is promising a real-world and grounded representation of true mental terror. So this is a game that is designed to mess with you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, I mean, Christian, there are people who really enjoy this kind of stuff. I'm definitely one of them, I'll say. So
I don't want to play that game because it's every day of my life.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. So Sweet land of yeah. But yeah, no, I find the whole thing super interesting.
You would.
It's exploring territory that I don't think is necessarily uncharted, but it's certainly much less traveled than other types of games. And I think it actually says something about the studio that they're willing to sort of dive into that and have a crack at kind of trying to peel open more layers of sort of, depicting different mental states that are not very commonplace in games. That's a hard thing to do, like a hard thing to do well, particularly when it comes to the horror genre, because I feel that like a lot of games out there kind of just go to the same age-old tropes and, jump scare this and gore fest that and that kind of thing. Probably the closest thing we had to really providing real atmospheric terror by modern standards is probably partly what PT was able to achieve. But even so, I don't think that quite went to the lengths that Ninja Theory are aspiring to with this game. So, but yeah, no, it's really cool. So they were talking about, in a video announcing the project, it's going to be based heavily on research and interviews and first-hand accounts to recreate the horrors of the mind as accurately and believably as possible. And it's only going to have one character and one location. So it's an experimental project, and they're going to use it as a bit of a showcase of what could become like a new immersive style of storytelling medium for them. So, Ninja Theory, like all of a sudden, just now that they've got a bit of Microsoft money behind them, they're ramping up in size and scope in the number of projects they've got on at the moment, and they're kicking the doors open and trying some cool new stuff. So I think they're a studio to watch. They're doing some really fun things at the moment.
Oh yeah. There's a Checkpoint. They did a series on mental health and game. Ninja Theory is one of those studios they keep on coming back to. So I'd be super keen on seeing what they come up with Mara.
Yep.
So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Side note, I saw that Konami are apparently looking to potentially reboot the Silent Hill franchise. So, faced with these two options, I'm much more interested in seeing what Ninja Theory is going to do, frankly.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
We will see.
Silent Hill's dead.
Yeah, absolutely. More ways than one. Christian, what's not dead?
Yes.
What's going on?
Street Fighter 5. So I have a story I wanted to just quickly talk about to do with Street Fighter. So there was a false announcement during the week that it was coming to the Switch, that Championship Edition was going to come out on Switch, which turned out to not be the case. But one thing that it raised was a lot of alarm bells to do with the online play with Street Fighter, because fighting games of all genres are very sensitive to like latency, because it's literally like individual frames matter. Like, does your attack come out in 3 frames or 4 frames, and there's 60 frames in a second? So like, it's incredibly precise, the requirements to have a smooth fighting game experience online. So even the difference between playing on Wi-Fi being compared to Ethernet is a huge deal. People call them like Wi-Fi warriors or red bars. And there's a lot of like discrimination against Wi-Fi fighting game players.
Fuck them.
So, yeah. and so on Switch,
as demonstrated.
Yeah, fuck up.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. But what's actually been happening is there has been crazy stuff with the online for Street Fighter, because ever since launch, there's been a known bug in the netcode of the game that was identified in beta that basically makes the game rather unstable in certain situations online. The way the netcode works is it uses a system called rollback. So what it does is fighting games can't afford to wait for the server to tell you whether your attack connects, because when you're doing things so quickly, you need to be able to press the next button straight away and have it register. So the local version of the game that you see is always accurate to your button presses. So it doesn't wait to check if your attack hit. What it does is it actually simulates a third version of the game in the background. So there's your local version, your opponent's local version, and then a simulated third version, which does wait and checks all the interactions and sees in the end, does your local experience match reality once we consider the opponent? And if there's a conflict where in that split second where it does check your attack was actually blocked, then it'll roll back and it'll actually change the appearance on your screen to match reality. So it's a weird sort of simulation that it runs.
Does that show you like a stutter or something?
It literally like rolls back. So on occasion you'll see like a yellow hit spark, and then it'll flicker, and then it'll be a block instead. Or an opponent will jump, but then they'll actually just flick back to the ground because the simulation has like adjusted. But when things are working fine, you don't see any of this because of the way rollback works. It's really a smooth local experience when it's working. It's only when it fucks up. But there was a problem, and then 4 years out, a modder created a fix for the netcode on PC, and fixed this bug that was in the game that would fuck up netcode sometimes. But what it did is, because it was only PC and the game has crossplay, it had a side effect where if you're playing crossplay, all of the lag gets dumped on the PS4 player, and the PS4 player just gets a completely screwed up experience, and the PC player is just having a smooth old time. So it caused a lot of people to turn off crossplay just in the game options, and then that's caused like a panic in the community where it's like, fuck, like we've fixed this problem, but then it's like damaging our community. And then what happened like a week later is a second guy said, I've got a new fix that will turn off the mod in crossplay. So if it detects you're playing a PS4 player, it will disable it. But the side effect of that mod is that if you're playing somebody with the first mod, it screws it up for them. So
I got a trace breaker and then a trace buster breaker buster. And
That's hilarious.
So it's created like this Mexican standoff situation where people are sticking to the first mod, even though it screws up PS4 players. Because if they play someone with the second mod, then they'll lose. And so it's like a game theory where like
it's the prisoner's dilemma.
It's the prisoner's dilemma. It's like if everybody on PC went to the second mod, it would be okay. But anyone who's on the second mod who plays the first mod, they get screwed. So then people don't want to change. So it's like if everyone was altruistic and rational, it'd be fine. But people are too afraid.
Yeah.
And it's just this weird standoff. and so everyone's just like, Capcom, like, please have like an official fix when Championship Edition comes out in February. And Ono, the director, he has acknowledged these fixes on Twitter, and he said, like, I'm aware of this, like, and something to the effect of like, please be patient. So people are thinking like, okay, they are finally going to do something about this officially.
When he's finished amusing himself to the tune of everybody else's misery, he'll finally get up and.
Yeah, it's just this weird situation where there's this Mexican standoff of different mods.
It's the whole thing of like everyone's pointing guns at everyone else. The official fix will come out and it will make things worse. Like
probably
there will be another direction in which people are like, no, this is the better way to go.
What everyone's worried is that they won't officially fix it. They'll just stop the ability to mod it. They'll say this is all an exploit, and they'll just stop it completely, and like go back to what it was before. So
I'm honestly surprised they allowed them to touch the netcode in that way with crossplay. Like that's pretty incredible because like you cannot touch that on console. So
yeah, there's no fix possible for PS4 players. It's all on the PC side because of crossplay. It has this side effect. So
yeah. I do find it fascinating that these are problems we're running into now because of crossplay existing, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it's hilarious.
To clarify, Christian, it only applies if they've installed either of the mods, correct? So if they haven't installed any mods at all, then it has no effect?
If you're playing on PC and you haven't installed any mod, then I think you have a worse experience against the people with the first mod.
But what if you're a PC player with none of the mods installed and you play a PS4 player online?
Then it's fine.
It's fine, right?
That's fine, yeah. But being a PS4 player, I can't select only play people on PC without the mod. Yeah. Because our player population here in Perth is quite small. I can't really afford to turn crossplay off because it's hard enough to find a game.
Yeah, that's been my experience.
Yeah. So I just have to if I do have a really bad experience with someone, you can blacklist them, which is good. So you can just straight away cut off the possibility of rematching with that person if it's unplayable. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. My experience is on occasion when I fought people on PC that are obviously glitching out. Have you heard of the crouching low punch communication thing that people do?
No. What's that?
You guys might be interested to know. I found this out by being involved in Street Fighter V chat. Because there's no way to communicate with people online, there is like a sign language that has evolved in Street Fighter V.
It's like an active emote kind of thing.
Yeah, to show when you're lagging. So the protocol is, in case anyone is in this situation in the future, if you are lagging and you want to let your opponent know, you backwards jump into the corner, crouch, and jab.
Really?
And that's you communicating to your opponent that you're lagging. And if they are polite, they will wait for you to stop lagging, and then you can continue the match.
Huh.
That is so cute.
And I have experienced it twice.
Wow.
Where people have done it. I've waited. They've done the jab. Then I like to believe they've said thank you by throwing a kick, away from the and then we've started fighting. It's actually been quite nice.
It sounds like something that would be more common in higher ranks when people are a bit more cultured. Instead of just dirty Ken players.
I must admit, the fucking Shoto noobs at our rank. I don't know if they have the dignity or the class. We'll see.
So is this technically called a lag jab or something? Is there a name for it?
No, I only found out about it 2 days ago. So it's interesting that now I've noticed.
Interesting.
It. Although a couple of the people in the chat have said just fuck them up. Don't worry about it. So who knows whether it actually matters.
I just enjoy if I have a match that's super laggy, slideshow laggy. You're just guessing, pressing buttons, and just whatever the fuck happens. But then afterwards, I go back and watch the replay because the replay just happens in normal time. So it's just two characters standing there just doing random kicks and shit and jumping, and it just looks like they have I barely have any idea what I'm doing anyway. But it just looks extra ridiculous on replay.
I often win those matchups because the character that I main has an ability where she shoots a projectile, but you don't have to do a command. You just hold the button and release it. So when I have those matchups, I always win them because I'm just doing this.
Nice.
God.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
All right. Well, to round out tonight, we want to get Matt, given that it's coming up this weekend, to chat a little bit about the upcoming Global Game Jam. So,
yeah. So we've talked about things that are dead, things that aren't dead, and now we're talking about things that will be dead, which is me. I'll be dead this weekend.
It's a bit dramatic.
What is dead may never die, Matt.
That's right.
It's good.
Rises again harder and stronger.
Harder, definitely.
What is this podcast tonight? Anyway, Global Game Jam. If you've not heard of it, it's a 48-hour event, sort of like a hackathon type thing. Where game developers get together, you're all together in one place, and you make a game over the course of 48 hours. So it starts on Friday night, and it goes through until Sunday night, pretty much, this weekend. So we won't know what the theme is. So basically you go in there, you find out the theme, and you start developing a game to that theme. And by the end of it, you're supposed to turn in something that is playable. I say with finger quotes if you're listening to the podcast rather than watching the stream. There's tons of finger quotes going on right now. But most of the time you end up showing something and it's so this didn't go to plan. Here's my really broken game.
Yeah, it's a super effective crunch simulator, basically.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's a super effective crunch simulator. But me, on the other hand,
hang on, wait. It's a super effective morph ball simulator.
Morph ball simulator. Oh my god,
That's a callback for our listeners. From last.
That is a callback to the last episode.
See issue 207.
Just think about that for a second. Nice.
But I like to actually get some sleep. So for me, like I will start it off. I'll get like 8 hours of sleep every night. But that still means that the other 16 hours I will be working on games. So, well, every day, 16 hours.
What was the theme last year again?
Spiders.
No.
No.
The theme last year was
home or
what
something.
home means to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what home means to you. And so I did a whole thing that was about interconnecting with people all around the world, because like the internet is home.
Ironically, if that I was going to say, ironically, if that was this year's theme, you've got an easy solution, because you could just do something based around 6,000 monsters stored in a box. So
this year's theme is going to be anime titties.
Anime titties. What do anime titties mean to you?
Yeah. Home. They mean home.
I'm home.
It's just a game.
Sorry. My fingers are lagging. My fingers are lagging. Sorry.
Oh my god. I hate this podcast so much. But I'm so happy
love
to
it.
be here.
You love it.
But yeah, no, it's always good fun. I'm looking forward to this year, but I'm also like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to punishing myself for 48 hours. I'm sure Adrian can relate, given the shiny hunting, and it's way longer than 48 hours.
Oh yeah, shiny hunting.
But yeah, no, I'm looking forward. Next week I should I'll have worked on a thing, feel free to send me nasty messages like, I hope you're suffering, you son of a bitch.
Business as usual.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. All right, well, business as usual for us. After news each week, we typically head into a main topic, and tonight's one is a bit different in nature to our usual jovial chats about all things fun and frivolous. So Christian's decided to get a bit more real tonight, and what do you got for us, man? What are we talking about tonight?
So tonight we're talking about negative gaming experiences. So we all love gaming. I'm sure that's why we do this podcast, and we all have a great time playing games most of the time. But we're also mature adults who can talk critically about our hobby and discuss.
No. If you have listened to this point,
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone from anime titties into that. That was a mistake.
In hindsight.
Hindsight.
But yeah, I wanted to have a frank discussion about some like negative experiences we've had, and I don't mean just like playing a game and going, "Oh, this game sucks." I mean something that's actually like affected you in some way, like left a bad taste in your mouth or in your hole in your wallet or something. And I want to be clear before we start as well that this is all completely anecdotal. So anything we talk about, we're not saying that's like necessarily going to happen to anybody who plays that game, or that's a feature of gaming. This is just something that we've personally experienced with certain situations. So not
There's one
not
exception to that, but we'll get to it.
Okay. So I want Luke to start us off actually. So Luke, tell us about a time when anything to do with gaming that you've genuinely had a negative time with, and what might have caused it, and how you feel about it.
Probably the thing that burns in my memory as being a game that I went into expecting at least challenging and fun experience, but it ended up being quite a negative experience with, as opposed to like a game that's designed to derive a negative experience out of you, which I think we can get onto a little bit later in this topic, is actually most recently Overwatch. So
right
now I've talked a lot about Overwatch on the show, and it's a game that at the end of the day, I actually do like Overwatch a lot. Like, I have had a great time with Overwatch. I think it's a fantastic game. Quality-wise, I really can't complain much about it, because I think it's a really friggin' good game. But I'm finding that more now. I haven't actually picked up Overwatch for quite a while, And I've actually got a bunch of friends, people who've listened to the show for a long time will know Ollie, Jam, Imogen, some of the previous crew, and a lot of extended friends in that group. They still actively play Overwatch quite a bit. I burnt out on it so hard that I actually just can't play it at the moment because it just leaves such a sour taste in my mouth. But the reason why I've got that taste is almost exactly down to one particular aspect of the game that had just really burned me hard, and that's competitive mode. So playing ranked competitive Overwatch, I had some super negative experiences with, to the point where it was a game that I love that now I just almost can't bear to play, because I feel that in order to... One of the things I realize more and more as time goes on is I value progression in games, and that progression can take many different forms. With Overwatch, progression to me is like progressing your skill at the game, or progressing your standing on like a rank system or something of value where you're actually accumulating points or resources or something like that. And the way that Overwatch is built is that I think that sort of ranked competitive mode is kind of like the antithesis of that. Antithesis is the wrong word. It's the combination of that, is what I'm saying. It's kind of like the pinnacle that you aspire to if you actually want to improve your skill at the game and you want to actually learn and earn something that's probably of a bit more value in it. The problem with competitive Overwatch is that it splits the party in terms of the competitive play co-op experience with friends that you've got. Unless you all happen to be exactly the same sort of skill level as each other, the way that it actually starts to sort of pull your group apart. I've got a group of friends that are of different sort of rank levels in competitive mode, and the attrition of the way that the points sort of degrade over time is so slow that if someone in that group is extremely poorly ranked and someone is on the opposite end of the scale and they're very, very high ranked, the game won't typically allow you to play with each other. There's actually like a cutoff in terms of how big the band can be before you're actually not allowed to group up. And after a season of ranked play, it does kind of reset you to a certain extent, but it actually does remember your previous rank. And when you do your sort of qualifying matches for the new season, it re-ranks you, but still sort of with those two sort of levels in mind. Like, it doesn't deviate too much from that. So you end up finding yourself in a position where like people that you enjoy playing with, unless you're almost exactly the same skill level, or if you've had the same sort of luck in terms of the games that you've played and where you've scored points and that sort of stuff, eventually you get pulled apart. And then you end up finding that the competitive play experience is just you solo or with less people, sort of against the world. And I hate to break it to you boys, but the world is full of assholes. Particularly in competitive Overwatch. There are some fucking nightmare players out there that really make that game unfun at the competitive level.
Right.
Yeah. So, you've got your support network that's stripped away from you. You're no longer playing games and having fun with friends. Now you're playing against randoms that... it can be an absolutely infuriating experience, but the gain for the pain is just not worth it in comp play. Yeah. And I found, like, so often I was going to that game and playing competitively and just tilting to the extent that I just didn't want to play the game at all anymore, let alone the other modes. And it turned what was a really positive game and a fun game that I loved a lot into a game that it leaves such a sour taste in my mouth that I can't even pick it up socially at the moment. So that's a super negative emotional experience for me. Yeah.
Because that hits in preparation, I wrote down like a bunch of sort of loose themes that I thought we might all hit tonight. And that one definitely hits like the social impact a bit, where like sometimes it can be frustrating. It can affect social relationships sometimes in a negative way. If you've got, sounds like there's people in your group that are better at the game, quite frankly, and then you're because you're not able to reach them, does that make you feel like isolated by that?
It does, and it's also sort of like a legacy for when the game originally came out. Like, there's definitely people that I've played with in my social groups, probably not in the last sort of 6 months because I haven't played the game actively, but around the time where I was last sort of going at it competitively, where on an individual match by match basis, my play standard was easily on par with them. But because of the legacy of the way that the rank system sort of played out, and the fact that my rank was already tainted by sort of previous efforts, like going back 6 months to a year beforehand, I could just never get up to the point where we were on that even footing again. It was just impossible. So yeah.
And then you also had like the toxicity in there, which is another category that I thought of. So like just playing with unpleasant people, creating a bad experience. And then you mentioned tilt, but do you mean in that like you get really frustrated when you lose ranks and you get into kind of like addictive like cycle where you want to keep playing because you want to recoup your lost ranks, but then you slide further and further.
It's funny. Like I've actually been thinking about it quite a bit lately in terms of the Crucible and Destiny 2, because I'm not a shooter guy generally. Like first person shooters, third person shooters, I don't tend to play a lot of them, but the ones that I do play and enjoy, I play a lot of those sort of small number of games. Destiny being one of the most obvious examples. Destiny Crucible is super unforgiving. It's really freaking hard to get good at. But I'm at the point now where I think I've actually played enough of it that I'm actually quite good at it. But the ranked play in Crucible is off-putting to a lot of people, but not to me. And the reason why it's not to me is not just because I'm decent at it, but also because I think that the competitive structure in terms of the points earning and how much you drop off when you lose games, and the bonuses you get for actually having a streak of wins is far more forgiving than what Overwatch presents. So the pain, the cost for time invested is a much better payoff, and so you feel better about doing it in the first place. And that tilts, to answer your specific question, you feel that much more intensively in Overwatch, where something that in any given match when you're doing quite well, but all of a sudden that win's taken away from you because of something that's outside of your control. I feel like you have a lot more agency playing competitively in Destiny, and that tends to happen like hardly as much. So big difference between
it's
the two.
Actually also a really good example. Like that system is flawed to make the experience unpleasant, right? Because like I haven't played competitive since Overwatch first came out. If I wanted to go play with some of my friends that have been playing it more consistently, I literally wouldn't be able to. Yeah. Right.
And to be fair, I want to make that clear too. Like, I don't think it's just the people involved. I think, you're right, Matt. It's actually the system. I think the system is the problem.
It's the whole system's fucked.
Yeah.
Like you can't get into it because of that system being so unpleasant. And I certainly, from my list, like I can't really point to a lot of really good examples of this system being so bad that it made the experience unpleasant. So
yeah.
Adrian, you were going to say something?
I was mainly agreeing with Luke in that the difference between that I found even when I was playing competitive Crucible is that, like you say, there are other rewards involved rather than just your ranks. So although you lose, you actually get rewarded just for playing. And that's something that Overwatch doesn't do. It doesn't really reward you just for playing the game in ranked mode because there are no real sort of individual cosmetics they can hand out en masse. Whereas in Destiny 2, there's a crafting system and a cosmetic system that can support sort of ranked mode, even if you're not earning ranks. So I feel like that is the smart thing to do in that regard, to sort of keep you happy so that even when you lose, you are still achieving.
So, Adrian, you want to know something really funny, Adrian? That extra points that you get just for playing games like each week, regardless of whether you win or lose, like you actually get assigned sort of extra glory points in Destiny at reset. I only discovered that this week. I actually didn't realize that. So I was already feeling pretty positive about the experience until I learned that, and now I'm feeling super fucking positive about the experience. So,
there you go.
Yeah,
the whole thing I like with Destiny and its competitive mode as well is the fact that like I was playing recently in competitive. I don't like competitive modes in games. I typically try to stay away from them because I get too serious about it. But in Destiny, like I was playing with a group of friends where I just we all went in there as Titans with the chest piece that constantly reloads automatic assault rifles. And we all ran around with miniguns. And we just completely obliterated teams because they were all playing the meta and they didn't know how to deal with that. And it was fun. It was stupid and fun.
Soccer theory.
Yes. It was totally soccer theory. Totally soccer theory. I mean, I don't think I'm a bad competitive player in
no,
Destiny.
you don't.
I don't know it. Yeah.
I've seen you play. You're pretty decent. Yeah.
One last thing about Overwatch is that was actually on my list of negative gaming experiences, but for a very different reason. It's actually not the ranked mode for me. I like, unlike some other games, I never got too invested in the ranks, but for me, it's the buying loot boxes. Where when Overwatch first came out, I got into a cycle where every time there was a new cosmetic expansion, I felt obligated to at least buy some loot boxes so that I didn't feel, it was like a FOMO sort of thing where like, I just wanted to get some. And then as long as I got a couple of the legendary skins, that was enough to keep me sated. But that kind of continued a little bit when I stopped playing so much. And there were a couple of expansions where I like bought some loot boxes and then like didn't even play the game. I just felt like I wanted to get the skins.
Particularly because during the events, they're time gated. Like they're only available for a limited period. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I totally regret that. Like of all like game purchases, I regret my Overwatch spending the most. Like I'm fine if I'd spent like $100, sure, but I spent hundreds, probably like maybe 400 in total, something like that, and totally regret it. Like I spent way more on Hearthstone, but I've got no problems with that. And yeah, so that was definitely a negative experience for me.
I will say one positive that I have seen come out of the game lately, and I haven't experienced this firsthand, I've just been sort of keeping up with the updates, is they're doing a very better approach to that now with seasonal events, where they actually have I think it's usually 3 of the exotic cosmetic skins for the main characters, some of the best looking ones, that they've actually linked to like weekly play sort of tasks. Yeah, like you have to play a certain number of matches and then you unlock the skin for that week. So it encourages you to play consistently throughout the entire event and takes the RNG out of at least earning those items, which I think is really good. Yeah.
Let's be frank. The best thing to come out of Overwatch are the Jeff Kaplan like Supercut videos, where he's like people have like cut his individual words to create meme videos of him. That's the best thing to come out of Overwatch.
That and the Source filmmaker erotic videos. I call them erotic videos. Adrian, we have class.
Blue movies.
Blue movies.
But Adrian, why don't you tell us something, another example of a negative experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to quickly mention, I won't talk about it at length because it's basically exactly the same as Luke's experience with Overwatch. I also had Overwatch on my list for the same reasons Luke and Christian mentioned. I also had Awesome Nauts on my list. Now, Awesome Nauts is a 2D lane-based character multiplayer game.
It's like a MOBA.
It's like a MOBA. Yeah, it's like a 2D MOBA is basically what it is. Christian and I got hard into it like for quite a while, and I again can honestly say I got quite good at it, which I don't usually say about games because I try to be quite objective. But I had a very similar experience to Luke, where it does have a ranked system. You do move up and down the ranks, and I'll talk a bit about it in this section where my personality lends itself to sort of believing that I'm better than I am. And that leads to sort of unreasonable expectations about where I should be ranked. So I had somewhat negative experiences with Awesome Nauts in the ranked system. Overall, I did enjoy it as a game, and it was probably a positive experience overall. But I just thought it was worth mentioning. And pretty much all the main points are the same reasons that Luke mentioned for Overwatch. So I won't go into it in any more depth than that because it's pretty much the same deal there. One that comes to mind, mainly because we just talked about Tilt, I think I'll talk about that. So Street Fighter V is a new experience in my life. And I must admit, I probably get the most hot-headed and tilted than ever when playing Street Fighter V, to the point where I'm sitting on my couch, I will like slap the couch and thump the cushions and swear. And I was trying to think of some examples, and some of my favorites are, what is one, like, what the fuck is another, and like, that's bullshit is very common. Like, oh, whatever is a good one, or fuck off. Those are probably some of the most common ones.
We got a whole soundboard going.
Yeah, fuck off is like I do that a lot, and like I even do this thing where I spin my the joystick has like a little plastic washer around it to stop dust getting in. I'll spin that and go fuck like sometimes. So,
it's like you're replicating the fight moves in the actual game. Like you've got like Chun-Li doing like a spinning leg kick, and you're just trying to do that in controller form as you spin it over your shoulder.
Exactly. But more to the point, there are times when I have realized that I've actually chucked a tantrum as a grown man, where I have slapped the couch and gone fuck, and like thrown a cushion and gone like fuck off, and like for an extended period of time gone pretty mental. And if that's not negative, I don't know what is.
Yeah,
I am a grown man, and that shouldn't be how I respond to it. But I do want to look at it intellectually, and I think the reason for this is, and it's probably the same for any fighting game that has a ranked system, there's something about like Christian was saying before, there's something about a game that functions on frame-to-frame inputs and data and results that creates a high level of tension and anticipation and expectation, and I kind of now understand why people go troppo at like competitive fighting events. I kind of get it now. Like I understand why people lose their shit, because ultimately the only thing that matters is that last millimeter of life on the life bar. You can have a full lead for the whole match and lose it all in a second if you don't remain vigilant. That's both infuriating and depressing. So there's something about the way fighting games are made and the nature of fighting games that just creates like a rage beast.
Just to quickly interject there, it's different. It's different from say like Hearthstone, where in Hearthstone, 4 turns into the game, I can look at my cards, I can look at the opponent's deck and go, I'm in a really good position here. I'm going to win this game, and that's usually the case. And I've got like 10 minutes where I'm just like, yep, I'm winning. Yeah. And like you can never think that way in Street Fighter. You never get like an extended period of time where you're like super confident and have that good feeling of victory. It's always, like Adrian's saying, so tense all the time.
Yeah, and if you think of a character having 3 avenues of attack, like air, standing, and crouching, there are moments in the game that come down to a rock paper scissors decision, where no matter, and I've talked about this at length with all sorts of different people online. It doesn't matter what you do. There are certain situations you'll be put in. For example, you'll be lying on the ground. Someone will be standing over you. In that situation, that person can punch you as you get up. They can throw you as you get up, or they can jump. Is usually or block. It ends up being a rock paper scissors decision. When you lose that throw 4 times in a row and then lose the match, cushions get thrown, couches get punched, and psyches get damaged. That's what happens. Because
people play mind games where they're like, they throw rock and you lose, and then they throw rock again and you lose, and then you think, oh, they're not going to throw rock a third time.
And they do it again.
And you feel even worse because it's like you've been caught out by the same thing repeatedly, and that you're the idiot.
You feel like a fool.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's what it boils down to. And then the other side of it is what we've already talked about, where there's a rank system where you rank up and down. You get more points. You get points for a win, points for a loss, and you're flip-flopping up and down. The only last thing I want to say, and this relates to any game where there's a ranked system, this is very personal, so please don't use it against me. I do have a superiority complex, and I do believe I am a golden god, and I am better than everyone I play. Without a doubt, I think that every time. I always blame the game. It's never my fault, and you're a fucking dickhead. And if you beat me, your mother needs to die. So that does contribute to my tilt. It does, I have to say.
And jumping off that, sorry, I know, Matt, you haven't had an opportunity yet, but I just wanted to
jumping off the dead mother once again.
Jumping off the dead mother is just an examination of the differences between Adrian and my psyche, where I also do get tilted at Street Fighter in the ranked mode, but for a different reason. I have like an inferiority complex, where whenever I lose, I get like upset at myself and think like, I'm so shit, like I'm terrible at this game. Why do I suck so much? Like, and I think like I've put in all this time. Not that I haven't actually put in that much time, but I think like, why am I even trying? Because I suck. And then it's like the same result as Adrian, but from like the other side of things. And I just find that interesting, like psychologically. Yeah. And it makes me feel like physically anxious and tense when I play sometimes. Like I've noticed that even when I sit down to play Street Fighter ranked mode, before I'm even in a game, my heartbeat is increased, my breathing is a bit faster, and I just feel a bit anxious.
Yeah.
And after, if I play like 2 matches and win them both in a row, I stop there because I'm like, I've got a good feeling and I'm done, and I don't want to like ruin it, because if I lose the next game, then I think, shit, I need to win the next one to get that good feeling back. So that's partly why my Street Fighter sessions are very short, because I usually only play until I win like 1 or 2 matches, and then I'm happy.
Yeah, see, I have the gambling fallacy hard in Street Fighter, where if I lose 5 matches in a row, I'm going to win next because I've lost so many matches. It's got to happen.
Some cost fallacy in terms of your time invested.
And when I don't, I get so angry. And when it comes to winning streaks, if I'm on a winning streak, that's just normal. Like that's
That's part of the course.
That's part of the course.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. It's when I lose that things are out of the ordinary.
I find it fascinating just examining my own psychology in these situations because when I feel anxious, I'm thinking to myself, like, why? Like, I shouldn't. I know that it doesn't matter. Like, I do have a fun experience playing the game. Why do I feel this way? And it's almost like I'm just trying to condition myself in some ways. Like I want to keep playing because I want to get over this, and that's like one of the goals of playing Street Fighter for me is becoming numb to this feeling because I want to get over it.
Yeah. I feel that sense of anxiousness whenever I'm playing something competitively and I'm ahead, but ahead in a space where I'm still vulnerable. So, like, when I'm not ahead, I don't tend to feel it. When I'm ahead by so much that I know there's no contest, I don't tend to feel it. But when I'm ahead by enough that, like, losing that lead makes me feel like a dickhead, then that's when I start to feel really anxious.
And that's every second of the match in Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you're always on that knife edge, which is what leads to rage because, you're just always in that balance, I find.
All right. Matt,
I was just gonna say, like, I find myself actually sitting in between, like, where Adrian and Christian are at, where, like, I believe I'm really fucking good at it, but if I underperform, it's like, what the fuck's wrong with me? I could do better than this.
It's never your fault, Matt. It's their fault.
It's always my fault. It's always my fault.
Their fault.
They're just better than me.
I'm better than them.
I'm trash.
I would offer an alternate.
Why did I try and throw?
They're trash. They're cheating the system.
Combo.
No,
do my
if they stop picking a Kuma and fucking,
I should know how to beat that. That's just doing flowchart jump if I block.
No, fucking too much spamming. That's the problem. Iframes on fucking Shoryuken. Bullshit.
Here's an alternate position, Matt. If you're between Christian and Adrian, you've got bigger problems.
I've got a bottle of salty tears right here.
Oh,
I've got a bottle of salty. Don't worry.
I love that you're drinking salty. That's so good. That all night. Are they my salty tears?
Yeah.
Have you been collecting them?
Yes. I honestly, like, this bottle was empty when
he was doing it when you had he was doing it when you were having your problems with getting detected in Dishonored, Adrian. You could say he's got a bottle of your dishonorable discharge.
Oh no, we walked into that.
We did.
That's terrible.
We did. For me, like, I feel like you've already all kind of covered it. I was going to jokingly say that Luke is my unpleasant gaming experience.
I'm either going to feel really good or really bad about this. Continue.
No, I only thought of this when we started. I only thought of this when we started, and thinking back to when we were playing the fucking pirate
Sea
game.
of Thieves, yeah.
Sea of Thieves. And, like, so I need to tell this story because, quite honestly, it's not actually an unpleasant gaming experience. I thought it was hilarious, but everybody else was pissed. So we had gotten barrels of gunpowder onto our ship, and it turns out if you shoot them, it not only kills the people around it, even if they're your crew, it also damages the ship. And so Luke goes and does this in the crow's nest and tries to lure one of us up. Like, I'm hearing weird sounds in the crow's nest. And I'm pretty sure it was Jam that climbed up.
It's a typical tactic in Sea of Thieves. You want to have the gunpowder in the crow's nest because if the enemy ship accidentally hits one, you want it to take out your the top of your mast, not the whole ship.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so Luke's down in the deck, and the moment that Jam climbs up there, shoots it, blows her up. And so we go and throw Luke in the brig, completely forgetting that we left another keg of gunpowder down in there. And so it's like, oh shit, there's a keg of gunpowder. Run downstairs, Luke shoots it, everybody dies, the ship sinks. It was fucking hilarious, but people were so mad.
So from my perspective, I was actually in the headspace where I was doing a bit of game science because my thought at the time was, surely they haven't allowed the person in the brig to shoot outside of the brig. I actually want to test if they've considered this. Turns out, spoiler alert, they didn't prevent you from doing that.
I reckon they considered that, and they're like, I'm fine with this.
Let's just quickly clarify the fact that this behavior is not uncommon of Luke across
Not at all. No, not at all.
Luke, don't put the teleporter on the bridge. Luke, don't go up the zip line. We've already got the crystal up there. Luke, don't fall off the edge. We need you to revive us. Luke, use your shield. Otherwise, the bugs are going to kill us all. Not uncommon.
Now, there are two cases in which I'll troll mercilessly in games, primarily. Number one is when someone's triggered me already by doing the same thing, and usually that's Ollie when I'm playing games with him. So usually, I mean, GTA is a great example where we're playing and, we tend to not shoot each other out in the open when we're trying to do activities until I get shot, and then it's fucking free-for-all. You push that button, then too bad. But the second thing is that when I know that the trolling is going to create, like, hilarity without too much actual game consequence. So yeah, and this is one of those cases where, like, we were at the end of a run, we didn't have anything that was super that bad to lose, and I thought it was going to be so funny, and it was. So yeah,
it was.
Yeah, it was.
But good. In terms of my personal other experiences, I had written down Super Smash Brothers, and it was not for the reason of me getting tilted. It was for the reason of somebody else getting tilted.
Right.
And so I actually had the game on Nintendo 64. And I was playing with friends when I was back in primary school. And one of them got so mad that he kept on getting beaten that he yanked his controller out from the console, pulled the console out of the cabinet, and broke my Nintendo 64.
Ooh.
And we weren't friends from that point forward.
Yeah.
Like,
that person's probably in jail now with their lack of impulse control.
Yeah.
It was Adrian. But no, like,
that guy's probably really good at Street Fighter.
It was one of those experiences that actually stuck with me, and like was just deeply unpleasant. Traumatic. And I haven't actually played Super Smash Brothers since. Like, it's just a game that I've not been interested in.
Did he buy you a new N64? Like, did you tell his mum or?
As I said, we weren't friends anymore.
When you're kids and you don't typically have the means to do that kind of thing, I mean, what do you expect them to do? It's not.
Yeah.
As
one of those things.
As an adult, obviously, you should say, sorry, I fucked up, I ruined your thing, I'll pay for it. But that's because we're a little bit more learned and have, that level of accountability with the ability to actually pay for that sort of thing. When you're a kid, I mean, you tend to, try and get away with as much as you can.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Don't cry, don't tell mum.
Yeah.
The only other notable experience I had was I actually, like, clicked out of Armello for a while. I really like the game. I freaking love it. It's great fun. But there was one occasion where I was playing with friends and I was on a winning streak, and they all got so pissed about it that they 3v1'd me. It was basically like, we're just going to gang up on Matt and do everything we can to screw up his day. And they were all having a good laugh about it. But I'm just sitting there feeling like, this is bullying.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm not having fun with this. They're having a great time. Like, they're basically like, okay, well, this person's somewhat in the lead. So, hey, let's just make sure that Matt just can't win. That's basically the objective now. We don't care about winning ourselves. It's no longer a competition. It's just beat Matt up.
That's just tactics, Matt. I don't know. I don't understand whether... No, I understand.
I actually had a similar situation with Armello, but flipped on its head, actually, Matt. Like, I had a bit of a negative experience with Armello for a while because one of the people I'd been playing with on the regular complained about the fact that I was repeatedly targeting them in the game, which wasn't true. It was...
I'm glad you said in the game.
No, it was purely a board position thing because we'd ended up being spawned into the game right next to each other in locations where it was advantageous for me in terms of the game to attack them at certain points. So I wasn't targeting them specifically. I was literally playing the game the way that I should play it. And if I wasn't doing that, it probably would have been a worse game for everybody concerned. But because they complained about it and because they complained about it audibly, it made the whole experience unpleasant for me because I felt that if I was to attack them, which is playing the game properly, that I would be made to feel like an asshole when in actual fact I wasn't. I was just playing the game. So that gave me a really negative feel as a result of doing what I was supposed to be doing. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's one of those games where it's almost like there's a silent code of conduct, right? Like, hey, so if you're playing with friends, you don't attack each other. The best man who doesn't beat each other up is the person that wins. Unless you play with specific friends who you know are just going to be like, no, you're all going to die.
Yeah, it's usually the complete opposite for me, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's when it gets hyper competitive. Like it's a strategy game essentially. And like it's one of those things where Stellaris is a really good example. I've only had positive player experiences in Stellaris, but that's because everybody's like, look, we have to invest at least 20 hours to finish this game. Let's not be dicks to each other. Because the moment we do that is the moment that somebody's only getting 1 hour out of the 20.
Yeah.
But you go and play that online on the other hand, and it's like everybody's just like, okay, time to fuck each other up because we don't give a shit. So yeah, like it's kind of interesting, like those dynamics. So
it is. Yeah, I had a similar experience to the Armello thing, but it was actually the Game of Thrones board game.
Oh yeah, I can understand this.
It was a situation where I was going to win. Right, I felt like I had put in the effort to win the game, but then it's weird because
story.
Game of Thrones is obviously all about backstabbing and everything, right? Yep. But the way it rolled out, it felt bad because I was going to win, and then one of the other players, they basically, to stop me winning, they let another player win in my place.
Yeah, there's a term for this. It's called keymaking. Yeah,
but it's like
sucks. Yeah.
What felt bad is that player two didn't do it because they wanted to win the game. It was literally them just like resigning and saying, "Hey, player three, I'm going to resign so you can win," with no effort.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want me to win.
Yeah.
And it just felt like they were just choosing that friend over me because like the end result was they're still going to lose. But there's just like, no, I don't want Christian to win. So I'm going to resign and let my other friend win.
They're salting the earth, basically.
Sorry.
So basically, the way that it played out was exactly like the final season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that, yeah.
Adrian?
I just want to very quickly
break trains.
Yeah.
I just want to very quickly mention 3 things. Fallout 76, probably one of the worst game experiences I've ever had. Won't go on about it. You guys know. The whole world knows. Battlefield 5, hackers.
Definitely.
Yeah.
One key thing, hackers.
Let's talk about that for a minute because that's a big one, I think.
Yeah, because that just flat out. I was really enjoying playing that game with Adrian, and we had to stop because there were too many hackers, and you just couldn't enjoy it.
Couldn't play the game. Like you just could get shot from the other side of the map. You die. There was just no point playing the game. Yeah. The third one, Smurfs. So I forgot to mention this in Street Fighter V. I won't go on too much about Street Fighter V, but for people unfamiliar with the word smurfing, it's when a high-level, high-skilled player in a competitive environment creates a Smurf account, a new account, and rolls through the lower ranks of that game, destroying sort of new players. Yeah. And Street Fighter V is rife with it.
Yep. Overwatch competitive is absolutely rampant with it as well.
World of Warcraft was rampant with it as well.
There you go.
It's all over the fucking place.
It's extremely unfun to be on the receiving end of it. The only fortunate thing is that in Street Fighter V you can blacklist players. So you can look at a person's player, see that their win percent is like 90%, which is ridiculous, or the fact that they're like in ultra bronze and they've only played 20 games, blacklist ban. Luckily. Yeah. But that's common in other competitive games as well. I know people that make Smurf accounts. So those 3 things, I feel like hacking and Smurfing sort of in the same kind of camp of like, abusing the meta.
Yeah, it's like anti-sportsman play. It's like
anti-sportsman play. Yeah.
I want to talk about hacking just for a sec because this relates to very strong experiences that I've had with Grand Theft Auto Online. But it manifested in a... Yeah. With GTA especially, I think it manifested in a slightly different way for me because it wasn't a hyper-competitive game in the sense that like a fighting game or like a shooter is. It's more that like GTA Online is a game that actually has like a monetary sort of cost associated with certain things in the game in terms of you can actually literally buy currency for this game and the money that you put into it in real world dollars actually equates to, things that you get in the game. Like you're basically purchasing funds to play with. Hackers in GTA are so unchecked by Rockstar and so rampant that there are people that go into that game and literally have like money-making sort of cheats that they enable and just throw cash around the place. And playing in that sort of environment, you know, it's frustrating for the fact that these people are sort of running around with, you know, missile-toting cars and just, you know, ruining your day whenever you're trying to complete a mission. But even more so, for anyone who's actually invested real currency into that game to sort of get things, and for someone else to come in and just offset that sort of economy by throwing, you know, fake money into the game, and they may or may not get caught and held accountable for that. It really leaves a sour taste in your mouth when it comes to spending actual money. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Like GTA 5 has had that problem since launch, and it's really shitty of Rockstar that they've never dealt with the problem.
Yeah.
But they still keep on making money off of it because people keep on still spend money. I went and reinstalled GTA 5 just recently because friends were like, "Hey, let's play it." It's like, yeah, sure, why not? And within 5 minutes of being online, I had a hacker that was flying around my head, constantly spawning tanks on top of me, so I just keep on getting crushed to death.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything. I mean,
you can have a closed server game, but then you cut yourself off from the world as well. So you don't.
You also actually lose access to a bunch of content that gives you money because of the fact that you're no longer at risk. So we're not going to reward you unless you risk yourself on public servers. So like you've got to deal with hackers, and it sucks. Like there's whole DLC packs they've got where it's like you're meant to get like a gang together and that sort of thing. You can't play that on a private server. You have to actually be on a public one because otherwise it just locks you out. So it really blows.
So I think the negative experience more comes from the fact that something that should be of value in the game and the time that you invest is kind of for naught. Like it changes that value into something valueless, and the cost to you is time and money. So you feel like you've wasted those two things. Yeah.
The fact that the game still keeps on making money just baffles me.
Oh, look, that aside, it's still one of my favorite games ever. But
it's just the online mode suffers so much because of it. Like I find it personally just unplayable. So yeah.
So we've actually covered most of the list that I thought we would. So we've definitely gone for Tilt. I talked about buyer's remorse with Overwatch, like sort of social consequences, hackers, toxicity. The ones that we haven't really talked about, just quickly, if anyone has experienced these, like major occasions of lost progress in a game. Like there was a JRPG, Tales of Exilia, I played once that I was like 20 hours into it, and then I got into like a unwinnable situation, and I didn't have a backup save, and so that just ruins my experience with the game, and I've never gone back and played that, and it's like if I wasted that time, and that's like situations where you lose huge chunks of progress. Definitely also negative experiences for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in real quick. That was actually my first experience with Pillars of Eternity. So the first time I played Pillars of Eternity, I put it on Iron Man mode with standard difficulty because I'm like, I'm familiar with RPGs. I'm going to give this a try. And I got all the way. There's an area beneath to the tower you take. I mentioned before. And you can just it's multiple floors. You go further and further down. I took out like a couple of floors, and I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty well. Found this pit, and in the interactions, you could put a grappling hook and then grapple down and skip a couple of floors. When you do that, you can't actually climb the grapple back up, and the level that it puts you on has level 12 monsters.
Yeah.
And if you go down there at a level that's like level 6 or level 5 or whatever, there's no way to get back up. And you're on Iron Man mode, so you haven't got any saves to fall back on. You're fucked. Like it's basically game over. And that was awful because the fact the game just didn't do anything to signpost that was a dangerous area that I was about to jump down into. So,
I would suspect that as bad as that setup is, if it was a glitch, it'd be even worse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then the last one was addiction. So sometimes people can actually get hooked on a game, and like it can have, a real addictive quality and have impact outside of their gaming life. And I personally don't think I've been addicted to a game where it's had consequences. Hearthstone skirted it a little, where like I should have been doing uni work, but I was playing Hearthstone instead. But I've always been able to pull myself back when I needed to.
I did play the Transformers mobile game. That is a gacha game. And I'm going to type in the chat the amount of money I think I spent on that game.
How many zeros?
Yeah.
It's hard
4?
to...
5?
I've never been addicted to a game that I didn't feel like I was getting something out of. So it hasn't always been an ultimately really, really bad experience. But there's one more category, Christian, which you haven't mentioned, which I thought I'd just very, very quickly throw in. And that's games that I feel are actually designed to elicit a negative emotional experience from the players by the subject matter that they cover. And the one example that I go to all the time with that one is when I played through that Dragon Cancer. Particularly for me, because I played that game at a time where I'd actually, very recently lost my father to cancer as well, and kind of deliberately put myself through that experience because I thought it would actually be something that, had value in kind of forcing myself to play it to sort of confront some inner demons in a way. And it absolutely had that effect, but it was a overwhelmingly negative emotional experience as a result, by design. Like, the game is designed to make you fucking sad as hell, because that's part of the journey. I think, I knew what I was in for, but at the end of the day, oh my God, Adrian, that's a lot of money.
For the audio listeners, he did type over $2,000, but then corrected it to say, wait, maybe $1,500. So that's the kind of ballpark.
Still a lot of money.
The Transformers game.
So what was I saying? Yeah, sad game.
You're saying, that's like, with games like they're designed to elicit that negative experience. There's like a tipping point, I feel, where there's like a safe negative experience that they intend you to have. That it can go further sometimes, and having a more lasting effect that is much more negative.
Some of them are quite contrived.
It's a triggering experience, potentially.
Absolutely. And granted, like, I was very much in a vulnerable state at that time, and it would have affected me way different to someone else. And I was aware of that going in. It was part of the journey. So
it's like watching a scary movie where it's designed to make you feel like scared, but then like if you're like a kid or something, and then you're having nightmares and you're like getting afraid of the dark, and like it's gone too far, and that's having like a real negative experience instead of just being like kind of making you excited by the fear.
Like watching a movie that has a lot of jump scares in it with a full bladder. You've only got yourself to blame.
I think like a war veteran playing a Call of Duty title, that's going to be a massively negative experience for them, right? Like your kind of individual situation is going to influence a lot in that case. But it's where you kind of get into that philosophical discussion of like, is that negative? Like, is it negative for you, or have you taken something positive from it? And is that the game's fault?
You can definitely get bored too. Like, as a parent now, anything that involves like depictions of children being abused and things like that happens in games from time to time, and that has a much more negative emotional impact on me than it ever would have, and that other people would feel necessarily. Do I think that stuff should not exist in games at all? Fuck no. Like, I think it's important, and I think it's actually quite important sometimes to be triggered to remind you why these things are serious themes that actually deserve to not be swept under the rug, and are sometimes worth confronting to make you sort of have a bit more real experience. So
I don't get sad when I play video games because I am a golden god, and those emotions are beyond me.
On that note, I think that was a great chat. Thank you all for that rather frank discussion about some vulnerabilities and negative experiences we've had. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. But games are usually a bit more fun than that, thankfully. So, if you pick the right ones and you take care of yourself, you tend to have a reasonably good time, unless something goes super, super off kilter and not to plan. So,
Or you play with Adrian.
Fight me.
You're not destroying another Nintendo 64, Adrian. Never again.
I'll get him. I'll get that 64. Just you wait.
Anyway, on that note, it's been a good show. So we've run a little long again, but that is okay. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed that and gotten some value out of the chat. But I'd actually be curious if anyone else out there who's listening has had any similarly negative emotional experiences. This game, it really hit you and been like absolutely destructive in the way that it sort of attacks some things that maybe you find triggering. Let us know. So send us an email at the usual spot. So mail@partyloaded.com. Check us out on Twitter at Partyloaded Show, Facebook, just search for Partyloaded, and everything else linked via our main hub at channelendgame.com. Adrian.
If your father used to beat you with a Dreamcast, let us know.
Wow.
Would it
Please
be...
also call the police.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I said used to.
That's why they call him Game Dad.
Wow. No,
Game Dad, no!
On that note, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll chat to you again next week. And until then, good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.